Hello, everybody. This is Chet Bolingbrook, the CRPG Addict, and today I want to take a look at Dungeon of Ymir, a 1986 RPG for the ZX81, developed by Fred Nachbar, a resident of British Columbia in Canada. I'm using an emulator called 81 to play the game. It's only the third or fourth time I've had to use this emulator because the ZX81 was not a very popular platform for role-playing games. It wasn't a very popular platform for games at all. It was released in 1981 and discontinued in 1984, a couple of years before this game came out. And the base model, only 1 kilobyte of memory. You had to have a memory expansion to do anything significant with it. And this game required a 16 kilobyte memory expansion, but even that wasn't a lot, and you can't pack much into 16 kilobytes. It took some effort to emulate the game. About 3 out of 4 times that I started up from the tape, it just presented me with a gibberish screen, and I had to keep trying, and eventually it produces this actual startup screen. It's an emulation problem. It's not a problem with the original game, but it's very tough to play these days. If there's any documentation with the game, it's been lost, but the main screen here gives you a pretty good run through of the controls and the icons that you face in the game. And it gives you basically the quest, which is to recover the Sword of Kaslo from the 9th level of the Dungeon of Ymir. So there's only 9 levels to the dungeon. A couple other things about the title screen here. The monsters list contains basically, in order from most difficult to least difficult, the monsters that you encounter in the game. But what the list doesn't tell you is the monsters actually come in 2 varieties. And one of the varieties is basically the level that you see here. So a ghoul is level 1, a bat is level 2. But the second variety of each monster is like 3 or 4 levels higher than the base one. So a level 1 character can kill a regular ghoul just fine, but there's a second one, I think it's called a ghastly ghoul, that is like a level 4 monster, and you have to be very careful about that. The other thing worth noting is that these names here, Minotaur of Castlegar, Archer of Argenta, Birdmen of Invermere, these are all towns, the names of towns in British Columbia near where Fred Nachbar lived. Their names don't actually appear in the game itself, just the basic name, Minotaur, Birdman, Archer, and so forth, appear in the actual game. So we progress on by hitting the Enter key, and this screen is kind of interesting because it theoretically allows us to continue a saved game or to save a game in progress. The thing is, I can't figure out how to get back to this screen after the game starts. So even though you're theoretically supposed to be able to save the game in progress, I've been having to use save states in order to continue play, which is a good thing because, as we're going to see, the game is hard enough that having to reload from tape every time you died would have been fairly excruciating. Anyway, I'm going to start a new game here, and theoretically it gives us the option to redefine keys, which would have been a good option to use if you had this game back in the day, but every time I've tried to do it, it crashes. So I'm just going to say no, and it gives us a secondary title screen here with a little bit of a paraphrase of Shakespeare, and then takes us into the screen that precedes every level. So as you switch levels, you always get this screen, and it just tells you what your statistics are, and everybody starts the same way at level 0, on dungeon level 1 with character level 0, and with only 9 maximum hit points. Now I've started here on level 1 of the dungeon, and you can see that the dungeon level is kind of occluded by a fog of war, so to speak. And as we move around, we uncover stairways and objects and enemies. Oh, there's an enemy right there. I'm going to avoid him for a second. Down at the bottom, it tells what my different statistics are. So I have no experience so far. I've got 10 gold pieces. I've got 3 teleport spells, 1 shield spell, 1 drift spell, no rejuvenation spells, and 5 healing potions. And there's this bat coming at me right here. Alright, so the difficulty of this game is that you've got to only attack the monsters on each level that you can defeat. Otherwise, you use up your resources, like healing potions, really fast, and there's such a limited number that you really need those. Bats are a low-level creature, but they're not the lowest level. And if this turns out to be one of the higher types of bats, then I won't be able to defeat him for several levels. Another key element here to fighting is that if the enemy attacks you, if he steps on your square, you can't flee. The only way you can flee is with a teleport spell. So if you've got one of those, you can use it if you have to get out of combat. But otherwise, you can't. So if you attack him, if you step on his square, then you can flee if you need to. And so it's generally a better idea, of course, to attack them so you can get away if you need to. So I'll do it just to show you what happens. And so this is a battle bat, so that's a base level bat. And I did kill him just as my hit points got down to 0. So it didn't have to use a healing potion. That's good. And now you can see my hits slowly regenerating back to 9. And I have 32 experience now. So that's a good first battle. I didn't have to use any of my resources. There's another one. Battle bat, come on. Yep, I nicely slew him. With 5 hit points to spare, I'll wait for them to regenerate, and then try this guy. Okay, so what happened there was, if you saw it really quickly, I had 2 of my healing potions disappeared. The game automatically made me drink the healing potions when the bat had got me down to 0 hit points. And wasting 2 healing potions on a bat is an unfortunate outcome for my third fight. This would be a Ghoul here. And so let's check out him. And he's the lowest level creature, and he wasn't one of the harder ghouls, so I was able to slay him okay. So I'm not doing so bad, but I hate having wasted 2 of those healing potions, because occasionally you'll meet a monster that, like this cockroach here, that I know I can't defeat. And so I definitely need potions or a shield spell. A shield spell protects you for the duration of a combat to defeat him. And I'd rather keep fighting bats till I get to level 2, and then I can take on the cockroach without having to waste anything. I just found some gold, 5 gold pieces, so I'll pick that up and continue uncovering the level. Oops, I don't want to walk there to my right because that's a trap going down to the next level. But here's a chest. I'll open that. Oh, it exploded on me. And it made me forget the map that I had already memorized, which often happens when you set off a trap. And by this method, we slowly uncover the level and find resources to defeat the enemy before we take the stairs down. Now, it may be that I want to take those stairs down before I've killed every enemy on this level, because the ones that are low... Okay, damn it. And that bat just killed me. So, if you had seen the text there, it said that was a wild war bat. That's the higher level version of bat. And I was way too low a level to defeat him. And somehow I couldn't pull away from that battle. He might have stepped into my square at the last second, or it just happened so fast that I didn't have time to pull away. So I've just died, and I've got to start over again with a new character. Or if I had saved the game, I could load it, I suppose, at this point, but I haven't been able to figure out how to save it. So let me load a game in progress here. Here's a character who's managed to make it to dungeon level 3, and he's leveled up. He's reached a higher character level, so he's got 14 maximum hit points instead of the 9 that he started with. Okay, I've just met the Oracle, and the Oracle can do a number of things for you. He sometimes gives you things, he sometimes gives you advice, he sometimes just takes your gold, as he did for me just then, and walks away with it. And sometimes he gets mad at you and he strips you of some of your experience points, which really isn't worth it to ever step on him, because you could lose so many experience points that you're busted back to the beginning level. Let's check out this bat. Okay, should be able to get him. There we go. So I just found a lamp, and what a lamp does for me is if I go up to an area where I can't really see, I can hit L, and it will automatically expand and show me more of the level. That's a dire wolf there. He's beyond my capabilities right now. So I have to try to avoid him. And it's not so hard on this level, but as you go down, the enemies get faster and are more likely to step in your level. Okay, this gremlin, it just killed me. So I'm going to have to reload a previous game. I've jumped here all the way to dungeon level 7 because I wanted to illustrate a few things from a complete level. On this level, everything's already uncovered because the Oracle gave me a map to this level. And the first time you visit a level after you get a map, you can see everything. So just some of the symbols. Obviously, these are a bunch of monsters running around. The Oracle's down here, and he's blocking these monsters from getting past him. These guys are hovering right around, and they're going to get to me eventually here. And I don't have many resources to deal with them. So we got a treasure chest here, and we've got piles of gold here and here. Here, lots of piles of gold around here. And lamps here. And this is a spell of some sort that I can pick up over here. And then this structure way off here is a temple. And let me get over there. I'm going to pick up this pile of gold on the way. Notice my hit points are at 45. I think I must be like level 5. I'm going to pick up this pile of gold over here as well on the way. I've got 41 gold pieces. Since the enemies are still all over there at that side of the level. Oh, wrong way. Oh, actually, I can't get there from here, can I? How can I get over to... I gotta go all the way back the way I came. I misjudged the map. I don't know if I'll be able to get there that easily after all. This bat I should be able to take care of. It's taking longer than I thought, but I slew him. The neat thing about the game is that as you descend, you theoretically face tougher average monsters, but you can still face really low-level monsters on very high levels, and that way you can keep choosing the monsters that you want to fight and thus build up your experience and your levels so that you can better kill the monsters that you can't choose. Now, I'm going to take a quick save here before I attempt to cross over. There's an Oracle there. He's going to do something to me when I step on him. I don't know what. He says, take this. He gave me a spell vial. The spell vial is a teleport spell. Okay. I'm going to charge past the Birdman. Oh, and see, what happened was I ran into him. And now I'm in a time warp, which freezes time for a while. Anyway, that Birdman, I stepped on him, and I stepped off him, which I can do because I'm the one who initiated combat. But then he immediately stepped right on me and initiated combat, and I couldn't escape that, and I'm slain. So I'm going to have to reload that save, and let's try this again. Fargoal, just made me invisible, which only lasts as long as and now the direwolf's killing me. I'm just going to teleport away from this. I could, but I didn't end up in an area that I wanted to be in, and now I'm getting killed by other creatures. Okay, let's try reloading again. You can see how difficult this would be if you had to reload from a tape every single time. Oracle says don't bother him, that's fine, I'll just run right past you. There we go, that time I got past them. And go up, collect. Something is not working on my keys all of a sudden. Oh, I'm in a time warp, that's why. Okay. So I got a healing potion there. And finally, I've made it to the temple. The temple is a safe space. And so as long as you're standing on it, creatures won't attack you, and your hit points regenerate faster, although they regenerate pretty fast anyway. Also, the temple converts your gold directly to experience points. And as long as I'm here, my character will be okay. Talk about some of the other spells. So teleport moves you to a random place on the same level. It could be a worse situation than you're in. Could be a better one. The shield spell allows you to survive one combat with any one creature. So it basically allows you to kill any creature no matter what level you're at. And the drift spell allows me to use these things. These are holes in the ceiling going to the previous level. So the drift spell lets you levitate up them. Rejuvenate restores your hit points. It regenerates them much faster than normal, and sometimes it will happen off fast enough in combat to allow you to survive the combat. And heal is pretty much the same thing, except it gives you those hit points back in a big chunk instead of doing it bit by bit like Rejuvenate does. Now, if elements of this game sound familiar from what I've described it so far, there's a reason for that. This game, the author took all of these game elements from a very popular game for the Commodore 64 called Sword of Fargoal. This is what that game looks like. And as you can see, everything's a lot more colorful, and you can't hear it. I'm going to turn on system sounds so that you can hear the sounds that the game plays, because they're probably the best part about Sword of Fargo, those system sounds. You get sounds from movement, but the best sounds come during combat. Picked up some gold there. See if I can find a creature. There's one. So the best sounds come during combat. Clang, thud, clink, clink, slash, ouch. And actually I think you're getting a distorted version because I'm at 200% speed here. So let me lower it to the proper speed. And you get kind of growls in the distance that tell you how close enemies are. And it's just a lot of fun to listen to the various sounds. You get a little triumphant tone when you win combat. Anyway, the character in Sword of Fargoal has all of the same spells as the one in Dungeon of Ymir, except he gets invisibility spells as well as all the other ones, but drift, teleport, rejuvenate, etc. That over here is a temple where I change gold for experience points. Okay. And I guess I'm not going to get any more combats here. Let me reload it at the proper speed. So that was a stairway I just stepped on, so you get a little tone indicating the stairway is ascending and so forth. There's a time limit here in Sword of Fargo that you're fighting against, where Dungeon of Ymir doesn't have that time limit. So Sword of Fargo is a little bit easier than Dungeon of Ymir in the individual combats. It's still very hard to win within the time limit, and there are a lot more levels. You have to go to like level 29 to win Sword of Fargoal, whereas Dungeon of Ymir only has 9 levels. But other than that, in the basic quest, the specific items that you have, the way that the temples work, the way that you earn experience, they're essentially the same game. I think it loses a lot without the sounds. And I'm sorry, I was trying to find a. There we go. I was trying to find a battle so I could fight to demonstrate that. Oh. And it automatically makes you take healing potions, same as Ymir. So you can see how much was taken from this, although the Commodore 64, of course, has 64K of memory and is a much more robust platform, and therefore they could put those fancy sounds and those colors and a lot more gameplay elements into it. So in some way, Ymir is a plagiarized game, although I'm sure that the developer wrote the code from scratch. I think he took elements and inspiration from Fargo. I don't think he ever had any of the code. It wouldn't have translated across platforms that easily. So he had to reprogram everything, and he deserves a lot of credit for what he was able to cram into those 16 kilobytes. But mechanically and thematically, he's definitely taking almost everything from Fargo and didn't, as far as I can tell, credit that game anywhere in this game. All right, so now I'm going to try to get past all these enemies so I can find an exit from this level. Oh, that Birdman. And he's killed me. All right, let me reload the previous save. And this time I'll just use these stairs right away, because I want to show what happens when I switch levels. It gives me this title screen again, showing me exactly what my statistics are. And if you've gained enough experience to gain a new level before you switch, you don't actually gain the new level until you change levels and see that experience reflected here. Notice that now I'm back on the previous level. I completely mapped this level on the way down, but you forget it when you leave and return, and you've got to map it again. In the modern era, of course, it makes sense to take screenshots of each level after you've uncovered it, so you can use those screenshots as a reference to help you ultimately get back to the surface when you need to. I should mention the Oracle, by the way, is a feature of this game that does not appear in Sword of Fargo. Okay, so what does it look like when you finally get all the way down to the bottom, level 9? Well, as you can see, it's pretty crazy. There's lots of enemies all over the place of different levels. Another time warp. And as you can see, I reached here with no extra resources. I've got no shield spells. I've got no healing potions. I don't think I can even defeat this Minotaur. The Minotaur just killed me. And so I'm looking at reloading again. So you got to try to avoid the monsters that you can't take. Ghoul shouldn't be a problem. It's that stupid time warp that keeps getting me. Killed the Ghoul. These cockroaches I could probably kill. But ultimately what I'm trying to do is get up here. Oh, come on. I keep getting attacked in the same square. I can't seem to move out of this. And I just died. I think I was hitting the wrong arrow, though. Let me try it one more time. Wait out that time warp. And there it is, the Sword of Caslo. I just stepped on it. I hope you saw it in that split second that it took me, and now I'm going to immediately jump on these stairs up, now that I have the Sword of Caslo, and go up to the previous level. So notice it changed my icon to this little guy with a sword. Now basically all I have to do from here is find the stairways up while not dying to things like mutant giant roaches or minor minotaurs, and I am going to die to him. So now I need to reload and get the sword again. But if I can avoid those guys, I basically just need to keep finding the stairways up. And like many roguelikes, it gets easier as you ascend, because the average difficulty of enemies gets easier. And so eventually you should find yourself on level 1 with the Sword of Caslo in your hand, at which point I don't need that oracle anymore. Let's just see what he wanted to say anyway. Thou art strong, so fear no evil. Well, I don't fear any evil because the stairway is right there, and I've got the Sword of Caslo. And so now when I exit, it should give me a winning screen. I escaped. I get a final report indicating where I was. I could have earned a couple hundred more experience points, and I think gotten one more experience level. I had plenty of lamps to use. And we get a nice little victory screen there. Getting to this point took me, I would say conservatively, about 100 reloads. It's just so difficult to avoid enemies and to only attack the ones that you can beat in the right order. And there's traps everywhere and explosions and pits that dump you to the next level. You're just dying constantly in this game. And the controls make it actually quite a bit more difficult. The native controls, anyway, I should point that out. If you look here at the ZX81 keyboard, the 5, 6, 7, and 8 keys basically show the arrows, right? So 5 has the arrow pointing to the west, 6 south, 7 north, and 8 east. And that's how you had to control the game, by hitting those particular keys on this keyboard, which wasn't, that responsive a keyboard. And I suppose you get used to it, but still, I don't think that I ever would have found it so intuitive to hit, 6 to go south and so forth, that I would have been able to maneuver as quickly as you really do need to maneuver in this game in order to avoid those enemies. Fortunately, the ZX81 emulator, or the 81 emulator, allows you to map the 5, 6, 7, and 8 keys to the 4 arrow keys on the standard Windows PC keyboard today. And so I was able to do that and navigate through the dungeon much easier than a player of the time would have been able to do it. What I would hope a player of the time would have done, perhaps, is to remap the north, south, east, and west to a cluster like I, J, K, L, or something like that, which is theoretically possible. As I said, it crashed every time I tried, but it might have worked with the modern keyboard. With a contemporary keyboard, I should say. As I said, Fred Nachbar, who wrote the game, was a resident of British Columbia, and he wrote a number of other games for the ZX81, mostly of the arcade or board game variety. Um, he passed away of cancer, unfortunately, in 2004 at the age of 53, which means he would have been 35 when he wrote Dungeon of Ymir. He has a webpage that's still up, and he notes on the webpage that his partner in programming through this period was a man named Gregory C. Harder, and I haven't been able to find out much information about Harder, but in 2017, Harder released a sequel to this game called Ymir 2, The Deeper Dungeon. I'm not really sure if it's a sequel or just like an expansion pack, and so I might take a look at that at a later date. But for now, that is Dungeon of Ymir, 1986 game for the ZX81. I'm Chet Bolingbroke, and I encourage you to visit my blog at the CRPG Addict to find out more about the history of computer role-playing games. Thank you very much.